The summer heat was unbearable that day, the kind of heat that makes the air shimmer above the pavement and turns every breath into a struggle. Maya pressed her baby daughter closer to her chest, trying to shield the little one from the scorching sun with her thin cardigan. The fabric was already soaked with sweat, clinging to her back like a second skin. She'd been walking for almost 2 hours now. 2 hours through the busy streets of downtown, past the fancy restaurants where people sat comfortably in air-conditioned dining rooms, past the designer stores with their gleaming windows, past countless people who didn't even glance her way. Her feet ached in her worn-out sneakers, the ones with the sole that was starting to come loose on the left side. Every step sent a sharp pain shooting through her heels, but she couldn't stop. Not yet. The job interview was supposed to start at 3 o'clock. She'd woken up at dawn that morning, borrowed an iron from another woman at the shelter, and carefully pressed the only professional outfit she had left. A simple white blouse and black pants that had seen better days but were still presentable. She'd practiced her answers while feeding her daughter, rehearsing in the tiny bathroom mirror while other women waited impatiently outside the door. This job had to work out. It just had to. Maya shifted her daughter to her other hip, wincing as her arms protested. The baby was 6 months old now, getting heavier every day, and carrying her around the city was becoming harder. She couldn't afford a stroller. Couldn't afford the bus fare either. The few dollars she had left needed to last until the end of the week, and that meant choosing between transportation and food. She'd chosen food, naturally. Well, crackers and some milk for the baby. That's all she could manage. Her stomach growled loudly, reminding her that she hadn't eaten anything substantial in 2 days. The crackers helped take the edge off, but they weren't enough. Nothing was enough anymore. Not the tiny portions at the shelter. Not the endless walking to save money. Not the constant worry that gnawed at her insides like a living thing. She used to have a good life. Not a fancy one, but good. She'd worked as a receptionist at a decent hotel, had a small apartment, could pay her bills on time. Then her daughter was born, and everything changed. The complications during delivery meant she needed time off to recover. More time than her employer was willing to give. They'd let her go, politely of course, with sympathetic smiles and words about budget cuts and restructuring. Without a job, the rent became impossible. Without savings, because medical bills had drained everything, she had no cushion to fall back on. The eviction notice came faster than she'd expected. And just like that, she and her baby were on the streets. Then in a shelter, then desperately applying for any job that would have her. The business district loomed ahead, all gleaming glass towers and perfectly manicured trees planted in neat rows along the sidewalk. Maya felt out of place here, surrounded by people in expensive suits talking on their phones, carrying leather briefcases, walking with the confident stride of those who'd never worried about where their next meal would come from. She checked the address on the crumpled piece of paper in her pocket. 2 more blocks. She could make it. She had to make it. Her vision blurred slightly and she blinked hard, trying to focus. The heat was getting to her, or maybe it was the hunger, or the exhaustion, probably all three. Her daughter made a small sound, and Maya looked down to see those beautiful eyes staring up at her with complete trust. That look always broke her heart and strengthened her resolve at the same time. "Almost there, sweetheart," she whispered. "Mama's going to get this job, and things are going to get better. I promise." The baby reached up with one tiny hand, grabbing at Maya's necklace. It was the only piece of jewelry she hadn't sold yet, a simple silver chain with a small heart pendant that her grandmother had given her. She couldn't bring herself to part with it, even though she knew it would probably buy them food for a week. Maya's head felt strange now, light and heavy at the same time. The buildings around her seemed to tilt slightly, and she had to stop walking for a moment to steady herself. She leaned against a lamppost, breathing hard, feeling the world spin. "Get it together," she told herself firmly. "You're almost there. Just a few more minutes." She pushed off from the lamppost and continued forward, one foot in front of the other, focusing on the simple act of walking. Don't think about the hunger. Don't think about the pain. Don't think about what will happen if you don't get this job. A sleek black car was parked at the curb ahead, the kind of car that probably cost more than she'd earn in 5 years. It gleamed in the sunlight, so polished that she could see her reflection in its surface as she approached. She looked terrible, hair plastered to her forehead with sweat, face pale despite the heat, eyes hollow with exhaustion. The building behind the car was impressive, all glass and steel reaching toward the sky. This must be it. The address matched. She just needed to get inside, splash some water on her face, compose herself, and nail this interview. Maya tried to take another step forward, but her legs suddenly felt like they were made of water. The sidewalk seemed to rush up toward her, and she heard a strange ringing in her ears. Her vision darkened at the edges, tunneling down to a small point of light. No, not now. Please, not now. She clutched her daughter tighter, turning her body as she fell so that she would take the impact. The last thing she remembered was the feeling of hot pavement against her shoulder and cheek, her arms wrapped protectively around her baby, and the distant sound of someone shouting. Then everything went black. She didn't see the man who'd been watching from the window above. Didn't see him drop his phone and run toward the elevator. Didn't see the crowd that gathered, or the way strangers pulled out their phones to call for help. Didn't see the expensive shoes that stopped beside her, or the hands that gently checked her pulse. She was aware of nothing except the darkness and the desperate hope that her daughter was okay. That was her only thought as consciousness slipped away. Please let her be okay. Please. The world faded completely, and Maya knew nothing more. The first thing Maya noticed was the softness. After weeks of sleeping on thin shelter mattresses and hard floors, her body immediately recognized the feeling of something luxurious beneath her. Leather smooth and cool against her skin. For a moment she kept her eyes closed, afraid that opening them would shatter whatever dream this was. Then reality crashed back in. Her baby. Where was her baby? Maya's eyes flew open and she tried to sit up too quickly. The room spun and a wave of dizziness forced her back down. Her heart pounded in her chest as panic took over. Easy now, take it slow. A male voice, calm and reassuring, came from somewhere nearby. Your daughter is right here. She's perfectly fine. Maya turned her head and relief flooded through her so intensely that tears immediately sprang to her eyes. There, not 3 feet away, her baby lay sleeping peacefully in what looked like an expensive portable crib, the kind with mesh sides and a padded bottom that Maya had looked at in stores but could never dream of affording. She's okay? Maya's voice came out as barely a whisper, rough and cracked. She's more than okay. My doctor checked her over completely. Not a scratch on her. You made sure of that when you fell? Maya finally looked up at the person speaking. A man stood near a massive desk, phone in hand, watching her with an expression that was hard to read. He was probably in his late 30s, dressed in a suit that probably cost more than her entire year's rent used to be, but his tie was loosened, his sleeves rolled up, and there was genuine concern in his eyes. Where am I? Maya asked, trying to piece together what had happened. The last thing she remembered was the sidewalk rushing toward her, the desperate need to protect her baby, and then nothing. My office, top floor of Riverside Industries. You collapsed right in front of my car. He walked over to a small table and poured water from a crystal pitcher into a glass. Here, drink this slowly. The doctor said you're severely dehydrated. Maya wanted to refuse. Pride told her to get up, grab her baby, and leave immediately. But her body had other ideas. Her hands shook as she reached for the glass, and she had to use both hands to bring it to her lips. The water was the most delicious thing she'd ever tasted. Not too fast, the man warned gently. Your system needs to adjust. My interview, Maya suddenly remembered, looking around frantically for a clock. What time is it? I had a job interview at 3. The man glanced at his watch. It's almost 5. I'm sorry, but you've been unconscious for over an hour. We were about to call an ambulance, but you started coming around and the doctor said you'd be okay with rest and fluids. Over an hour. The interview was long gone. Another opportunity lost. Maya felt tears building again, but she forced them back. She couldn't break down, not here, not in front of this stranger in his expensive office. I should go, she said, trying to stand again. This time she managed to get her feet under her, but her legs wobbled dangerously. Sit down before you fall again. It wasn't said harshly, but there was authority in his voice, the kind of voice that was used to being obeyed. You're in no condition to go anywhere right now. I can't just stay here, Maya protested weakly, but she did sink back onto the couch. You've already done too much. I'm sorry for causing such a scene. I'll just get my daughter and... When's the last time you ate a real meal? The question caught her off guard. Maya looked down at her hands, shame burning in her cheeks. I don't see how that's relevant. Humor me. 3 days ago. At the shelter. It was chicken and rice, I think. The man was quiet for a moment, and when Maya looked up, she saw something in his expression that looked almost like pain. He walked over to his desk and pressed a button on his phone. Jennifer, can you order food from that Italian place downstairs? Get the chicken parmesan, extra bread, a side salad, and make sure they include the soup. Also, get some fresh fruit and those crackers that come with cheese. Yes, enough for 2 people. Bring it up as soon as it arrives, thanks. You don't have to do that, Maya said quickly. Really, I can't accept. You passed out from malnutrition on a public sidewalk while holding an infant, he interrupted, his voice firm but not unkind. Yes, I absolutely have to do that. And before you argue, think about your daughter. When's the last time you had enough energy to properly take care of her? The words stung because they were true. Maya had been running on empty for so long that she'd almost forgotten what it felt like to have actual energy. Every day was a struggle just to keep going, to keep her baby fed and safe. I don't even know your name, Maya said quietly. Robert Chen. I own this company. He pulled a chair over and sat down, keeping a respectful distance. And you are? Maya Torres. And this is my daughter, Lily. She looked over at the sleeping baby, her heart swelling with love and fear in equal measure. Nice to meet you both, though I wish it were under better circumstances. Robert leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. The doctor said you're malnourished, dehydrated, and exhausted. He also said you're lucky you didn't hit your head when you fell. But Lily's really okay? Maya needed to hear it again. Perfect. You twisted your whole body to protect her. The doctor said it was remarkable, actually. Pure instinct. Of course it was instinct. Maya would throw herself in front of a train if it meant keeping her daughter safe. Any mother would. There was a knock at the door and a woman in a crisp business suit entered, carrying several bags that smelled absolutely heavenly. Maya's stomach growled so loudly that everyone in the room could hear it. Thank you, Jennifer, Robert said, taking the bags and setting them on the coffee table in front of Maya. Hold my calls for the next hour, please. The woman nodded, but not before giving Maya a curious look. Maya was suddenly very aware of how she must appear. Sweaty, disheveled, probably looking half dead on this expensive couch in this pristine office. Robert started unpacking the food, and the smell made Maya's mouth water uncontrollably. Chicken parmesan with melted cheese, fresh bread still warm from the oven. A bowl of minestrone soup with vegetables floating in rich broth. It looked like a feast. Eat, Robert said simply, handing her a fork. And don't argue with me about it. Consider it payment for scaring the life out of me when I saw you fall. Maya wanted to maintain her pride, wanted to refuse, wanted to prove she didn't need charity, but her body betrayed her. Her hands reached for the fork before her brain could stop them. The first bite of chicken nearly made her cry. It was warm and savory and absolutely delicious. She ate slowly at first, trying to maintain some dignity, but hunger won out. Robert didn't watch her eat, instead busying himself with paperwork at his desk, giving her privacy in her desperation. Where are you staying? He asked after a few minutes, his tone casual. Maya hesitated. A shelter. The women's shelter on 5th Street. Robert nodded, not showing any judgment on his face. And you were heading to a job interview when you collapsed? Yes, for a receptionist position at a law firm. Maya took a sip of the soup, feeling warmth spread through her chest. I was supposed to be there at 3. I'd been preparing for days. What happened to your last job? And so Maya found herself telling her story to this stranger. About the difficult birth, the recovery time, the job loss, the eviction, about the endless cycle of rejection letters and missed opportunities. About the crushing weight of trying to be a good mother when you couldn't even feed yourself properly. Robert listened without interrupting, and when she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. My mother raised me alone, he finally said, his voice softer than before. 3 jobs, sometimes 4. I watched her work herself to the bone, trying to give me a chance at something better. She never complained, never asked for help, never admitted when things were too hard. He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. She died 2 years ago. Heart attack. The doctors said it was from years of stress and exhaustion. I'd finally made something of myself, finally had the money to help her, but I was too late. She spent her whole life struggling, and I couldn't do anything about it. Maya sat very still, understanding washing over her. She saw now why he'd helped her, why he was being so kind. She reminded him of his mother. I'm sorry, she said softly. Don't be sorry. Just let me help you. Robert turned back to face her, and there was determination in his eyes. I can't help my mother anymore, but maybe I can help you. Maya didn't know what to say to that. Part of her wanted to refuse, to insist she could handle things on her own. But looking at her sleeping daughter, thinking about the empty days ahead, she realized something important. Sometimes accepting help wasn't weakness. Sometimes it was the bravest thing you could do. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." 3 days had passed since Maya collapsed on that sidewalk, and she still couldn't quite believe what was happening. She stood in front of a modest apartment building, holding a key card that Robert had given her, wondering if this was all some kind of elaborate dream. "It's not much," Robert had told her that morning. "Just a studio apartment that the company keeps for out-of-town employees. It's been empty for 2 months. You'd actually be doing us a favor by keeping an eye on it." Maya knew that was probably a lie. A kind lie, but still a lie. Companies like Riverside Industries didn't need someone to babysit their empty apartments. But she'd learned something important over the past few days. Robert Chen had his pride too, and he needed to frame his help in a way that made it seem like less of a charity case. So she'd accepted the key and thanked him quietly, blinking back tears. The apartment was on the 3rd floor. Small, yes, but clean and furnished with basics. A real bed, not a shelter cot. A tiny kitchen with a working stove. A bathroom she wouldn't have to share with 20 other women. As Maya walked through the space, bouncing Lily gently in her arms, she felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. But hope was a dangerous thing. She'd learned that the hard way. Hope could be crushed, and the higher you let it climb, the harder you fell when it came crashing down. The job offer had come yesterday, presented over coffee in Robert's office. His assistant was going on maternity leave, and they needed someone to help with basic administrative tasks. Filing, answering phones, organizing schedules. Nothing fancy, but steady work with a steady paycheck. "I don't have recent references," Maya had said, wanting to be honest. "And I've got Lily. I can't afford daycare. We have an on-site childcare facility for employees. It's included in your benefits package." Robert had said it so casually, as if providing free childcare was the most normal thing in the world. Maya had wanted to ask why. Why was he doing all this for a complete stranger? But she already knew the answer. She'd seen it in his eyes when he talked about his mother. This wasn't really about Maya at all. It was about a son trying to make peace with the fact that he couldn't save the person who mattered most. She could live with that. If being someone's second chance at redemption meant having a roof over her head and food in her belly, she could absolutely live with that. Her first day at Riverside Industries was terrifying. Maya dropped Lily off at the childcare center, trying not to cry as she handed her daughter to the cheerful woman at the front desk. She'd never been apart from Lily for more than an hour. What if something happened? What if Lily needed her? "First time?" the childcare worker asked kindly, seeing the panic on Maya's face. "That obvious?" "Honey, I see it every day. Your baby will be fine. We'll call you if anything comes up, promise." The office was on the 15th floor, all glass walls and modern furniture. Maya felt completely out of place in her thrift store clothes, while everyone around her wore designer labels. But she kept her head up and followed Jennifer, Robert's main assistant, to a small desk near the copy room. "It's pretty straightforward," Jennifer explained, showing her the computer system. "You'll be handling basic correspondence, filing these reports, and answering the phones when they overflow to this line. Think you can manage?" Maya nodded, determined not to mess this up. "Yes, absolutely." The first few hours were overwhelming. The phone system was more complicated than anything she'd used before. The filing system seemed designed to confuse people, and every time someone walked past her desk, Maya felt their eyes on her, judging, wondering who she was and why she was there. She heard the whispers during lunch break. Ate alone at her desk, but the walls were thin and voices carried. "Did you hear? Robert personally hired her. I heard she literally collapsed in front of him. How convenient, please." She's obviously playing him. Single mother sob story, batting her eyelashes, classic. Maya's cheeks burned, but she kept her eyes on her sandwich. Let them think what they wanted. She knew the truth. She wasn't playing anyone. She was just trying to survive. By the end of the week, Maya had started to find her rhythm. The work wasn't difficult, just unfamiliar. She learned quickly, took careful notes, and stayed late to make sure everything was done perfectly. She couldn't afford to give anyone a reason to question her presence here. Robert mostly kept his distance, which Maya appreciated. He'd nod when they passed in the hallway, ask politely how she was settling in, but nothing more. He was giving her space to prove herself, and she was grateful for that. But on Friday afternoon, everything shifted. Maya was filing reports in the storage room when she overheard voices from the conference room next door. The walls were thin and the men inside weren't trying to be quiet. "Robert, this is getting ridiculous." A voice she didn't recognize, sharp with irritation. "You can't just hire random people off the street. Maya is qualified for the position." Robert's voice was calm but firm. "Qualified? She has no recent work history, no references, and you're paying her more than our entry-level employees. Not to mention giving her free housing. The housing was empty, and her salary is standard for the position. Come on, Robert. We all know what this is about. You feel guilty about your mother, so you're trying to save every struggling single parent you see. It's not sustainable, and frankly, it's not good business." Maya pressed herself against the wall, hardly breathing. "My personal motivations are irrelevant. Maya's doing excellent work, is she? Or are you just not willing to see clearly because she reminds you of someone?" There was a long pause. Maya could picture Robert's face, the way his jaw tightened when he was trying to control his temper. "This conversation is over, Thomas." Maya stays. "The board won't like this. You're opening the company up to liability. What happens when she sues us, claiming you took advantage of her vulnerable situation? What happens when other employees start demanding the same treatment? Then I'll deal with it. But I'm not throwing someone out on the street because you're paranoid." "I'm not paranoid. I'm practical. And I'm telling you, as your business partner, this is a mistake." Maya heard footsteps approaching and quickly moved away from the wall, pretending to be absorbed in her filing. But her hands were shaking as she sorted papers. Was Thomas right? Was she putting Robert in a bad position? She didn't want to be anyone's liability or mistake. She'd worked so hard to prove she wasn't a charity case, but maybe that's all anyone would ever see her as. That evening, she was packing up her desk when Robert appeared beside her. "Can we talk?" "In my office?" Maya's stomach dropped. This was it. He was going to let her go, explain that it wasn't working out, wish her well. She followed him silently, preparing herself for another rejection. But instead of sitting behind his desk, Robert leaned against it, his posture casual. "I'm guessing you heard the conversation this afternoon. No point in lying. Some of it. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. The walls are thin. I know. I should have taken it to a different room." He rubbed his face tiredly. "Look, I want you to know that Thomas doesn't speak for the company. His concerns are noted but not shared by everyone. Maybe he has a point, though." Maya forced the words out. "I don't want to cause problems for you. If this is going to damage your business or your reputation, I can leave. I'll understand." Robert looked at her for a long moment, and something in his expression reminded her of that first day, when he'd talked about his mother. "Do you know what my mother used to say? She'd say that the world tries to convince poor people that they don't deserve help, that accepting kindness makes them weak or dishonest. The world wants you to suffer in silence because it's more comfortable that way." Maya didn't know what to say to that. "You're not a liability, Maya. You're an employee who's doing good work. Better than good, actually. Jennifer told me you've reorganized the entire filing system in a way that makes more sense than what we've been using for years." "Really?" Maya hadn't heard any feedback from Jennifer. "Really. You're smart, efficient, and dedicated. Those are the qualities I look for in employees." He crossed his arms. "Now I need to know something. Do you want to stay? Not because you feel obligated, not because you're grateful. Do you actually want this job?" Did she want it? Maya thought about the past week. The satisfaction of completing tasks well, the relief of picking up Lily from childcare and actually having energy to play with her, the simple joy of cooking dinner in her own kitchen, modest as it was. "Yes," she said firmly. "I want to stay. I want to work hard and prove that I belong here. Then stay. And stop listening to Thomas. He's a good businessman, but a terrible judge of character." Robert smiled slightly. "Besides, if you leave now, who's going to maintain that filing system? Jennifer certainly doesn't want to learn it." Maya felt herself smile back, some of the tension leaving her shoulders. Over the next month, she settled into a routine that felt almost normal. Wake up, get Lily ready, drop her at childcare, work hard all day, pick up Lily. Go home to their little apartment. Simple, steady, safe. She started to breathe easier, started to believe that maybe, just maybe, things were actually going to be okay. And then Lily got sick. The call came at 2 in the afternoon. Maya was in the middle of organizing a presentation when her phone buzzed with the childcare center's number. Her heart immediately jumped into her throat. Miss Torres? This is Rachel from childcare. Lily has a fever. It's quite high, around 103. We think you should come get her. Maya was already grabbing her bag. I'm on my way. She practically ran to the elevator, her mind racing with worst-case scenarios. Lily had seemed fine that morning. A little fussy maybe, but nothing alarming. How could her temperature spike so fast? When she reached the childcare center, Lily was crying weakly in Rachel's arms, her little face flushed bright red. Maya's hands trembled as she took her daughter and felt the heat radiating from her tiny body. Has this happened before? Rachel asked, concern evident in her voice. No, never. She's always been healthy. Maya pressed her lips to Lily's forehead, confirming what she already knew. This wasn't a normal fever. You should take her to urgent care. That temperature is too high for a baby her age. Maya nodded, already heading for the door. But halfway down the hallway, reality hit her like a punch to the gut. Urgent care meant bills she couldn't pay. Her first paycheck hadn't come through yet, and even when it did, there wasn't money for medical emergencies. She'd been so focused on making rent and buying groceries that she hadn't thought about what would happen if Lily got sick. She stood frozen in the lobby, holding her burning baby, feeling that familiar panic rising in her chest, the same panic she'd felt before losing her apartment, before ending up at the shelter. The feeling of walls closing in with no way out. Maya? Jennifer's voice cut through her spiral. Is everything okay? Lily's sick. High fever? I need to take her to urgent care, but The word stuck in her throat. Pride and shame fought each other, making it hard to speak. Jennifer understood immediately. Come with me. Before Maya could protest, Jennifer was leading her to Robert's office. She knocked once and opened the door without waiting for an answer. Robert, Maya needs help. Her daughter has a fever. Robert looked up from his computer, his expression shifting instantly from focused businessman to concerned human being. How high? 103, Maya said quietly, feeling tears threaten. I'm sorry, I know this isn't your problem, but I don't have insurance yet and I can't afford. Stop. Robert was already standing, grabbing his jacket. My doctor makes house calls. He's 5 minutes away. Let's get Lily to the conference room where she can lie down and I'll call him right now. I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking. I'm telling you that's what's happening. His voice was firm, leaving no room for argument. Jennifer, clear the conference room and get some cool towels now. Everything happened fast after that. The conference room was transformed into a makeshift examination area. Robert's doctor arrived with a medical bag and a calm demeanor that immediately put Maya somewhat at ease. He examined Lily thoroughly while Maya hovered nearby, wringing her hands. It's a respiratory infection, the doctor finally announced. Common in babies her age, but it needs to be treated. I'm going to prescribe antibiotics and a fever reducer. She should start feeling better within 24 hours. But if the fever doesn't break or if she has trouble breathing, take her to the emergency room immediately. How much will the medicine cost? Maya asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The doctor glanced at Robert, who shook his head slightly. Don't worry about that right now. Just focus on getting her well. After the doctor left, Maya sat in the conference room holding Lily, who'd finally fallen into an exhausted sleep. The fever reducer was already working, bringing her temperature down. Robert had stepped out to handle the prescription, leaving Maya alone with her thoughts. She knew she should feel grateful, and she did. But there was something else too. A growing awareness that she was sinking deeper into debt. Not financial debt exactly, but emotional debt. The kind that came from accepting favor after favor until you felt like you'd never be able to stand on your own again. When Robert returned with the medicine, Maya forced herself to meet his eyes. Thank you. For everything. I'll pay you back, I promise. It might take a while, but I'll figure out a payment plan or... Maya, stop. Robert set the medicine on the table and sat down across from her. Can I tell you something? She nodded, not trusting her voice. When I was 7, I got really sick. Pneumonia. My mom took me to the emergency room, but she didn't have insurance. Didn't have savings. The hospital treated me because they had to, but the bills afterward nearly destroyed us. He paused, his jaw tight. My mom had a friend who offered to help pay. Just a loan, he said, interest-free. My mom refused. Said she didn't take charity, said she'd handle it herself. What happened? She worked herself nearly to death paying off those bills. Took her 3 years. 3 years of barely sleeping, barely eating, missing every school event I had because she was working. His voice was thick with old pain, all because she was too proud to accept help from someone who genuinely wanted to give it. Maya looked down at Lily's sleeping face, understanding what he was trying to tell her. I watched pride nearly kill my mother, Robert continued, and I learned something important. Accepting help isn't weakness. You know what weakness is? Letting your child suffer because you're too stubborn to admit you need support. The words hit hard because they were true. Maya had been so focused on maintaining her independence that she hadn't considered what that stubbornness might cost Lily. I'm scared, Maya admitted quietly. Scared that I'm becoming dependent on you. Scared that if this all goes away, I'll fall even harder than before. That's a fair fear. But Maya, look at me. Robert waited until she met his eyes. You're not dependent. You're employed. You work hard every single day. You've improved systems in this office that had been broken for years. You're earning your place here. But the apartment, the doctor, the medicine, the apartment was empty. The doctor is on retainer whether he sees patients or not. The medicine costs less than the coffee I buy in a week. He leaned forward. You're not a burden. You're a person who hit a rough patch and needed a hand up. That's all. Maya wanted to believe him. Wanted to accept that this wasn't charity, that she wasn't taking advantage, that she deserved the help she was receiving. My mom used to say something else, Robert added, his voice softer now. She'd say that the world teaches women, especially mothers, that they have to do everything alone. That asking for help makes them failures. But that's garbage. Humans are meant to help each other. That's how we survive. A tear slipped down Maya's cheek before she could stop it. Your mom sounds like she was an amazing person. She was. Stubborn as hell, but amazing. Robert smiled sadly. And she taught me that when you have the ability to help someone, you should do it. Not because it makes you a hero, but because it's the right thing to do. They sat in silence for a moment, Lily breathing softly between them. Okay, Maya finally said. Okay, I'll accept the help. But I need you to understand something too. What's that? I'm going to work harder than anyone else in this building. I'm going to prove that your faith in me wasn't misplaced. And someday, when I'm stable and secure, I'm going to help someone else the way you've helped me. Robert smiled, genuine and warm. Deal. Over the next few days, Lily recovered quickly. The antibiotics worked. The fever broke, and soon she was back to her cheerful self, babbling and grabbing at everything in reach. Maya returned to work with renewed determination, but the office atmosphere had shifted. Thomas, Robert's business partner, had apparently been busy spreading his concerns to other executives. Maya noticed the looks, heard the whispered conversations that stopped when she walked by. Special treatment, someone muttered. In the break room. Must be nice having the boss wrapped around your finger, another voice added. Maya kept her head down and worked harder. She arrived early, stayed late, volunteered for extra projects. She documented everything she did, keeping detailed records of her contributions. If anyone questioned her value, she wanted concrete proof that she earned her place. One afternoon, she found an envelope on her desk. Inside was a photocopy of an anonymous letter addressed to the Human Resources Department. The words made her blood run cold. Robert Chen is showing inappropriate favoritism to employee Maya Torres. He has provided her with housing, paid her medical bills, and shields her from normal performance standards. This creates a hostile work environment and potential legal liability for the company. The relationship should be investigated immediately. Maya's hands shook as she read it twice, then a third time. Someone was actively trying to get her fired. Worse, they were implying something inappropriate between her and Robert. She should have thrown it away. Should have ignored it. But instead, she found herself walking to Robert's office, the letter clutched in her hand. He was on the phone but waved her in when he saw her face. He ended the call quickly. What's wrong? Maya handed him the letter without speaking. Robert read it, his expression darkening with each word. When he finished, he set it down carefully like it might explode. This is from Thomas. I recognized the phrasing. He looked at Maya. I'm sorry you had to see this. Is he right? Maya asked quietly. Am I causing problems for you? Putting the company at risk? No. You're causing problems for Thomas because he doesn't like that I made a decision without consulting him. This isn't about you at all. It's about control. But what if he goes to the board? What if they investigate? Let them investigate. My finances are clean. Your employment is legitimate. There's nothing inappropriate happening here. Robert crumpled the letter and tossed it in the trash. Thomas is just trying to scare you into quitting. Maybe I should. Do you want to quit? Maya thought about Lily, healthy and happy in childcare. Thought about their little apartment and the groceries in the fridge. Thought about the satisfaction she felt when she solved a problem at work or organized something efficiently. No, she admitted. I don't want to quit. But I don't want to hurt you either. Robert stood up and walked around his desk. Then don't quit. Stay and keep doing excellent work. That's the best revenge against people like Thomas. Success. Maya nodded slowly, feeling something shift inside her. Maybe it was time to stop running from fights and start standing her ground. Okay, she said, her voice stronger now. I'll stay. Good. Robert smiled. Because honestly, Jennifer has been raving about your organizational systems, and if you leave, she'll probably quit too. Maya laughed despite everything, feeling lighter than she had in days. She was staying, and this time, she was going to fight for what she'd earned. 6 months had passed since that hot summer day when Maya collapsed on the sidewalk. Sometimes she still couldn't believe how much her life had changed. She'd look around her apartment in the morning, or watch Lily playing happily in the childcare center, and have to pinch herself to make sure it was all real. The work had gotten easier as she learned the systems and built relationships with the other employees. Most people had stopped whispering about her after a few months, especially once they saw that she wasn't getting any special treatment beyond the initial help Robert had provided. She worked just as hard as everyone else. Harder, even. Jennifer had become something close to a friend, though Maya was still cautious about letting people get too close. Trust was something she was learning to rebuild slowly. You've got a talent for this, Jennifer told her one afternoon as they organized files for an upcoming board meeting. Have you ever thought about moving into project management? You're wasting your skills on administrative work. Maya had laughed it off at the time, but the comment stayed with her. Maybe she could aim higher. Maybe this didn't have to be the end of her journey, but just the beginning. Robert had kept his distance, professionally speaking, which Maya appreciated. He treated her the same as any other employee, gave her constructive feedback, and never brought up the circumstances of how she'd started working there. It was exactly what she needed. But one Friday evening, everything shifted again. Maya was packing up her desk when she heard raised voices from the conference room. Robert's voice, strained and tense in a way she'd rarely heard, and several others she didn't recognize. We're losing the Peterson contract. That's $3 million. $3 million. An unfamiliar male voice, sharp with accusation. The deal isn't dead yet. We still have time to renegotiate. Time. Robert, they want an answer by Monday morning. We need to come up with a solution this weekend or we're done. Maya hesitated near the door. She should leave. This wasn't her business. But something made her pause. The problem is the timeline, a woman's voice added. They want implementation by first quarter, and we've told them it's impossible. But their competitor is promising it can be done. Because their competitor is lying, Robert shot back. There's no way to implement a system that complex in 3 months. It's not physically possible. Then we need to figure out how to make it possible, or we lose the biggest contract we've landed in 5 years. Maya's mind was already working, connecting dots she didn't even know she'd noticed. The Peterson contract was for a new data management system. She'd been filing the preliminary reports for weeks, had organized all the technical specifications, had even created a timeline breakdown because it helped her understand the project better. And she'd noticed something. A gap in the timeline that didn't need to be there. Before she could talk herself out of it, Maya knocked on the conference room door. The conversation stopped abruptly. Robert looked surprised to see her still there. I'm sorry to interrupt, Maya said, her heart pounding, but I might have an idea. Thomas was there, of course, along with 3 other executives Maya recognized but had never spoken to. They all stared at her like she'd grown a second head. Maya, this is a private meeting, Thomas said coldly. I know, and I'm sorry, but I've been working with the Peterson files and I noticed something in the implementation timeline. She looked at Robert. May I show you? Robert gestured to an empty chair. Please. Maya sat down, trying to ignore the hostile looks from some of the executives. She pulled out her tablet where she'd been keeping notes. The current timeline has the infrastructure build happening after the software customization, but if you run them simultaneously with 2 separate teams, you could cut 6 weeks off the implementation time. We've already considered parallel processing, one of the executives said dismissively. It increases the risk of integration errors. Not if you build in daily sync meetings between the teams, Maya continued. pulling up the detailed timeline she'd created. Look here. If the infrastructure team provides daily updates on their progress, the software team can adjust their customization in real time. You'd catch integration issues immediately instead of at the end. The room was quiet for a moment. Robert leaned forward, studying her timeline. That could work, he said slowly. But we'd need someone coordinating between the teams constantly. Someone who understands both sides of the project well enough to catch conflicts early. I could do it, Maya said, then immediately wondered if she'd lost her mind. I mean, I know I'm just an administrative assistant, but I've read all the documentation. I understand the project requirements. And I'm good at coordination. Thomas actually laughed. You want to put an entry-level employee with no technical background in charge of coordinating a $3 million project? I'm not suggesting she lead it, Robert said, his eyes still on Maya's timeline. But as a project coordinator, making sure information flows between teams, that might actually work. This is insane, Thomas muttered. But one of the other executives, a woman named Patricia, was studying the timeline too. Actually, it's not insane. It's clever. The communication gap is exactly what killed our last project. If someone was dedicated full-time to keeping everyone synchronized, it's still too risky, Thomas insisted. We're talking about our biggest client. And right now we're going to lose them anyway, Robert pointed out. Maya's solution at least gives us a chance. The debate continued for another 20 minutes with Maya sitting quietly while the executives argued. Finally, Patricia turned to her directly. If we did this, could you commit to working essentially around the clock for the next 3 months? Because that's what this would take. Nights, weekends, constant availability. Maya thought about Lily, thought about the child care center's extended hours, thought about how far she'd come and how much further she wanted to go. Yes, she said firmly, I can do it. Robert looked at her for a long moment and she could see him calculating the risk. If she failed, it would reflect badly on him. It would prove Thomas right about his judgment. Okay, he finally said. Let's do it. Maya, you'll coordinate between the infrastructure and software teams. Patricia, you'll oversee the entire project. Thomas, I need you on client relations, keeping Peterson happy while we execute this. Thomas looked like he wanted to argue more, but Patricia was already nodding. I'll work with Maya starting tomorrow, Patricia said. If she's going to coordinate this project, she needs a crash course in technical management. And just like that, Maya's life changed again. The next 3 months were the hardest she'd ever worked. Patricia was demanding but fair, teaching Maya everything she needed to know about project management while expecting perfection in return. Maya spent her days coordinating between teams, her evenings learning technical specifications, and her nights making sure every detail was tracked and every potential conflict was caught early. She saw Lily less than she wanted, but the child care center's staff were amazing, and on weekends Maya made sure to dedicate every moment to her daughter. Lily was thriving now, healthy and happy, starting to pull herself up on furniture and babble in a way that almost sounded like words. The Peterson project was intense, but Maya discovered something about herself. She was good at this. Really good. She could see patterns others missed, could anticipate problems before they became crises, could communicate complex ideas to different teams in ways they each understood. When they delivered the project on time, 2 weeks ahead of the adjusted schedule, Peterson's CEO personally called to congratulate Robert. I don't know what you did differently this time, he said during the call that Maya was invited to join, but this is the smoothest implementation we've ever experienced. Your coordination was flawless. After the call ended, Robert turned to Maya with a smile. Congratulations. You just saved this company $3 million and probably earned us future contracts with Peterson. Maya felt tears prick her eyes but blinked them back. Thank you for giving me the chance. Thank you for having the courage to knock on that conference room door. The promotion came 2 weeks later. Junior project manager, with a salary that made Maya's hands shake when she saw the offer letter. She could afford a bigger apartment now, could start saving, could breathe without constantly worrying about whether she'd have enough for groceries. But more than the money, it was the validation. She'd proven herself not through charity or connections, but through her own skills and hard work. At Lily's first birthday party, held in their new 2-bedroom apartment, Maya looked around at the small gathering. A few co-workers who'd become genuine friends. Patricia, who'd become an unexpected mentor. and Robert sitting on the floor helping Lily tear wrapping paper off presents. "You did good," Jennifer said, appearing beside Maya with a piece of cake. "Really good." "I got lucky," Maya said. Luck was collapsing in front of the right car. "Everything after that was you." Maya watched Robert laugh as Lily smashed cake into her face, watched her daughter's pure joy at being surrounded by people who cared about her, and felt something settle in her chest. Not quite peace because she was still cautious, still careful, but something close to it. She thought about that desperate woman who'd collapsed on the sidewalk 6 months ago. That woman who'd been so broken she couldn't take another step. That woman who'd thought her life was over. That woman had no idea what she was capable of. A few weeks later, Maya was in Robert's office discussing a new project when she brought up something that had been on her mind. "I want to start a program," she said, "for people in situations like I was in. Single parents, people who've hit hard times but just need a chance." Robert looked interested. "What kind of program?" "Job training, mentorship, help with childcare. Nothing that enables dependency, but support that helps people get back on their feet." She pulled out a proposal she'd been working on. "I know it sounds ambitious, but I think we could start small. Partner with shelters. Identify people who are motivated but just need an opportunity." Robert read through her proposal, and when he looked up, there was something in his eyes that looked like pride. "This is exactly what my mother would have wanted," he said quietly. "Let's do it." 6 months after that, the Riverside Fresh Start program launched with its first group of participants. Maya led the orientation, looking at the 5 women sitting nervously in the conference room, seeing herself in every face. "I know you're scared," she told them. "I know you think this might be too good to be true. I know you're worried about accepting help because you've been taught that it makes you weak." She paused, making eye contact with each woman. "But here's what I learned. That day I collapsed on the sidewalk with my daughter in my arms. I thought my life was ending. Turned out it was just beginning. Not because someone handed me success, but because someone gave me a chance to prove what I was capable of. Now I'm here to give you that same chance." One of the women raised her hand tentatively. "What if we fail?" Maya smiled. "Then you try again. That's the whole point. You're not going to be thrown away if you stumble. You're going to be supported until you find your footing." As she looked at those hopeful, terrified faces, Maya felt the last piece of her own healing click into place. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was building something that mattered. She was creating the kind of help she'd needed, the kind her daughter would be proud of someday. That night, tucking Lily into bed in their comfortable apartment, Maya thought about how far they'd come. "From a sidewalk to here, from desperation to purpose, we made it, baby girl," she whispered, kissing her daughter's forehead. "We really made it." And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Maya felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be.